So today on Vintage Sports File, we're going to talk about the curious case of Glenn Goldup. Now, for people of a certain age, with the Montreal Canes fans, Glenn Goldup is kind of like a head scratcher. He had every opportunity to make it with the Montreal Canadiens in the mid-1970s. He was a talented right winger, big at 6 feet, 190, and a great career in the junior leagues. But when he got to the NHL, his totals with Nova Scotia and his aggressive play didn't really carry on with Montreal, and he ended up outside looking in, especially with the amount of players that Montreal was looking at the time. Now, Glenn Michael Goldup was born April 26, 1953 in Toronto. He eventually played nearly 300 games in the NHL, mostly for the LA Kings after leaving Montreal. As a youth, he played in the 1965 Quebec International Pee Wee Tournament with the Toronto Torrids minor team. And his connection with the NHL was quite strong, as his father, Hank Goldup, also played in the NHL. Now, when I talked with the Marlies, had a cup of coffee with him in 1970, but by the 1973 season, he had some great totals with the legendary squad. In 1973, he had 42 goals and 53 assists for 95 points in 54 games, with 173 minutes in the sin bin. And he was known to be aggressive. And part of Montreal's training of this player to give it an aggressive side to Montreal's play, because they were competing with tough teams like Buffalo and the Flyers and Toronto and Boston in the regular season and the playoffs. Now, after being drafted 17 overall, very high draft pick, and he was a second overall pick for the New England Whalers in the 73 draft, both 73 from Montreal and New England. His first season with the Voyageurs, he had 18 goals in 44 games, 6 games with the big club, but no points, no penalty minutes. Back to the Voyageurs is 75, 31 points in 49 games, including 15 goals. He had 1 assist in 9 games with Montreal in that 75 season. 76, back to the Voyageurs, 23 goals, 22 assists for 45 points. Now, 76 season, that year that Montreal got back to the Cup, he also called up Goldup and some of the other stronger players in a famous preseason game to take on the Flyers, and Goldup and the rest of the tough ones for Montreal, defended the honor of the Habs against them. Now, after that 76 season, either he demanded a trade or they got rid of him. He ended up with the LA Kings. He started some games with the CHL's Fort Worth Texans, but with the Kings in his rookie season, he had 13 points, including 7 goals in 28 games. Now, from then he played parts of 5 seasons with LA. Best total, of course, was the 1979 season, where he got 15 goals and 22 assists for 37 points. Now, by the time the 81 season came along, he was splitting time between the Kings and New Haven, and he did spend 2 more years with New Haven after his last season with the LA in 82, but he was a career minor leaguer pretty much for the last 3 seasons of his career. Now, he did have every opportunity to make it with the Kings, but despite Marcel Dion and a few other key players, Dave Taylor and Mike Murphy, he basically was a defensive third-line player, still a quality player, you can't complain. But as a head-scratcher, I mean, he was pretty well one of the top draft picks of Montreal in the mid-70s, and considering how he drafted Sutton, Murray Wilson, and Lafleur, and a lot of key ones, to see using a number 17 and not pan out was pretty well a failure for the Montreal scouting and this side. Not say he was comparable to a bad draft like Duck Wickenheiser, because Wickenheiser had more talent than Glenn Goldup. But, it's like a head scratcher. When you were flipping cards back in the day and you were looking at your Montreal cards, you saw Glenn Goldup and said, when is he ever going to make it? Because he would play for a few games in Montreal. Like back then, everybody watched Montreal on Saturday nights, and Goldup had some home games that he played. And like I said, he seemed quite impressive. Good on the ice. He was a hitting player, but In Montreal, if you're a 20-goal scorer, you might be considered a failure because I think at one point you had 12 players of the team had a potential to score 20 goals. No joke, by the way. When a fourth-line forward in Montreal got 20 goals, that's kind of saying, well, he reaches potential. So, Glenn Goldup, final totals, 291 NHL games, 119 points, with 52 goals. And, in the playoffs, 4 goals and 3 assists for 7 points. And because he never played when Montreal in the playoffs in that 76 season, his name is not on the Stanley Cup. And, it's like this. You keep Rick Chartrand or get rid of Glenn Goldup. I think keeping Rick Chartrand was the best decision. So, again, have a good evening, stay safe, and keep your stick in the ice. Bye.